Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at @Studka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. And this is episode 258. And we have got a North London derby to discuss, a point for Spurs Women at home in front of a record WSL crowd at Brisbane Road, which maybe there were some other reasons for that too, but we'll get into it for certain. Scott is alongside. He's at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what's going on, my friend?
Been a great weekend, great Sunday ahead. I've got 4 teams that I support, just passionately, and it's Spurs Women, Spurs Men, Iowa State women's basketball, and Iowa State football. The 2 men's teams that I support did not play this weekend, which made it a wonderful weekend if you're paying attention to at least one of their seasons, right, and then bits and pieces of the others. And on top of that, I won the treble today in FM 26. Football Manager 26 just came out about a week ago, and I won the treble today. So, yeah, I'm feeling untouchable.
It's really weird. I didn't get that in the rundown before we started recording. That's my fault. That's on me.
I always got a nice intro prepped.
Todd is also with us. He is at TC_Show. TC, what's up, man? How's your Sunday?
Any day you can welcome a new dog into your life is a good fucking day, and I got one of those. Her name is Abby. She is a 3-year-old boxer mix, and she is incredible, and I couldn't be more thankful. Also, we didn't lose in North London Derby today, and that is always beautiful.
We certainly love all of those things. Let's just dive right in. Look, the majority of the action obviously this week is on the Spurs women's side of things because they're the ones in action, and we've got a signing to talk about. There was a big story in The Athletic, if anybody saw it, that revealed some things that I want to discuss a little bit here. But Spurs hosted a North London derby at Brisbane Road this morning, a 0-0 draw. And overall, I think is a good point for Spurs. This was a match in which Arsenal were certainly on the front foot more often than Spurs and had the better of the attacking play. But overall, I felt like this was a pretty calm and controlled defensive performance that Spurs women can walk away from proudly and say that they really hung with Arsenal throughout this one, guys. I honestly, I wasn't blown away by us in attack, but overall, I'm happy with the point given where the 2 teams are right now.
Well, I kind of feel like that's how we set up. Is it looked as though we set up to kind of soak up pressure and keep everything in front of us and manage the game. And if you look at the way that we had some moments in the first half where we were a little bit more on the front foot, but ultimately we played the majority of the game just trying not to concede, and we did an excellent job. Cop played on our head, and it was there were a couple of shaking moments, especially down the stretch, especially on that left hand side. But I think all in all, it was a very good account of where Spurs women are this season.
Yeah, fully agreed. I mean, no, I completely agree, Todd. I said it at the final whistle in the chat, but that display defensively against an Arsenal side who, again, just won a European Championship and really knows how to find the goals this year. It was a wonderful display from the defense and from the entire 11. But I've said it many times on this show, or at least a few. This team has to focus on building itself defensively and establishing itself defensively, and reverse engineering from there. And it's very evident today that Martin Ho has gotten them there quickly. And I got to give shout to Claire Hunt, who was the player of the match. I think last year there was a lot of scrutiny thrown at Claire Hunt, right? But I think that was or enough. I shouldn't say a lot, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit. But there was enough scrutiny thrown Claire Hunt's way last season. And I think, to see how well she's done this year not only speaks to her, it also speaks to probably more of what was going on last season behind the scenes, right, which we'll talk about, but most importantly, what Martin Ho has done in a quick time.
You mentioned Claire Hunt. I mean, she was protecting Amanda Nilden, especially in that second half, down that left side of defensively for Spurs. The young Canadian Olivia Smith came on for Beth Mead and really tore things up on down that side. And between Claire Hunt and Liz Kopp standing tall in goal, they were able to prevent any concessions. So you love to see that.
I want to take a second and talk about how impressed I've been with Toka Kogo and the way that she's slotted in and been exceptional in that partnership with Hunt. And honestly, you can never say enough about this player when you're talking about Spurs women. I mean, Ash Neville had another stellar performance.
Yeah, she really did, and provided that outlet defensively, getting the ball out to Jess Naz and into the midfield. It was TC, you mentioned it, like it was I thought a well managed game. I thought subs could have happened earlier in the second half when things looked like they were turning on its head, but they managed to hold on and get it across the line for the point, which again I think is a positive. Arsenal had come into this match, of course, they lost points late in the match last week against Chelsea very controversially, and then had a little bit of a calamity themselves in the Champions League at midweek against Bayern Munich, blowing a 2-goal lead and losing 3-2. So Arsenal were coming into this one a little bit limping. So I almost would have thought it to be an opportunity to jump, like a blood in the water type of situation. But I like the way that this, and Scott, you said it, like I like the way this team is just structured to be sound defensively, keep shape, and you can just see the patterns of play. I mean, I know we've said that phrase a lot, especially this season. The patterns of play just look better. The connections, all the rondos, like everyone just looks more confident on the ball under this system, and it just looks way more defensively sound, and I think that leads to what you can do going forward.
I totally agree, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it's also important to note exactly what you're starting to get at there, and just so the listener is not confused, we are very sound defensively, but we are not a defensive football team at this point. Right now, I know we had less of the ball today, but we were very happy to attack Arsenal and go after this one, right? We are not sitting back. We are not absorbing pressure. That's not what I mean when I talk about how sound we've been defensively. We're sound defensively from an attacking style of play, right? And the way that we play the ball out the back, like you just said, the patterns are there. It's very evident, right? There was a couple times early in the match where actually I mentioned Ash Neville in the chat, but Drew Spence as well. Both of them were having a little bit of trouble making the right decision in the first probably like 15 minutes in terms of getting the ball out of the back, right? But we figured it out, and that shows me that again those specific patterns we're looking to use are there, right? And I'm not saying it's like as structured as a Conte system, right? But it's evident that there are certain passes, like there's like almost like a quarterback progression that each player has when they've received the ball in certain areas, right? And credit to Martin Ho for that as well. I was going to make my name today Martin Ho lifetime contract, and I just forgot, but you're going to hear me talk about him often today because I'm just incredibly impressed.
Well, there is
Andrew,
a lot of positivity there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it probably makes sense that that's the perfect transition into the job that Benai's done from the top and all of the intricacies that have changed behind the scenes in the last year.
Yeah, no question. There was a lengthy athletic piece published this week. The author was Megan Faringa, and shout out to Caroline for pointing this out because I found it in her newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, go subscribe to Spurs Across the Pond. Caroline does a great job of curating this stuff. But this piece was kind of billed as a North London Derby preview, but it was really a feature on the backroom dealings at Spurs and how this transition has been made from Robert Villaham to Martin Ho. And you mentioned it, with Vinay Venkatesham playing a very key role. Of course, he was appointed last spring, and the wheels have been turning behind the scenes for Spurs Women. They are kind of moving away from this one club model and trying to prioritize some staffing specifically ready to work with Spurs Women and focus there. They're trying to build up on the academy side of things. We've kind of seen that even in social media posts and through the club website. We've seen that over the last, say, 6 to 9 months as well. But this piece was very detailed in going into reporting about how there was really kind of almost a player mutiny against Robert Villaham after the FA Cup defeat to Everton last season, and that Beth England was kind of called on to keep club morale up through the end of the season when Villaham was, of course, dismissed. And It goes into detail about the hiring of Martin Ho. It goes into detail, too, about how that very same player, Toka Kogo, who you mentioned earlier, very nearly went to a different London club, an unnamed London club, because she had to be convinced, essentially, by Martin Ho to stick with her original decision to sign with Spurs. There's a lot of interesting parts of this piece that really spell out how this, I guess, rejuvenation for Spurs Women has gone under Martin Ho, and it's been, I think, just really encouraging. It's linear, growth is linear. It's going to take steps here, but we're seeing it, and I'm enjoying the process so far.
Yeah, it has been. I remember when we were in the the grips of the tailspin last year. I remember that my biggest gripe with this squad was it didn't have an identity. I didn't know what it was or why it was or what it was doing. I feel the complete opposite now. I have not in the entire time that I've been following Spurs Women, I have not felt more confident in the direction that the program is going. And I think that's all you can ask for when you have regime change. That's all you can ask for.
It's definitely a mentality thing too. I think, and the players have spoken to that. Like, there's a mentality. I would have seen a number of occasions where they lost this very North London derby that we just witnessed today. They would have given up a late goal and heads would have sunk, but no, they stuck their foot in the ground and got the point that they needed from this match, and I thought that was really crucial too. The other thing they're discussing, and that was discussed in this article, is long-term stadium ideas and plans for that. We saw a very packed Brisbane Road, I mentioned earlier. A lot of Arsenal fans in the building as well.
Cool.
You heard that as well on the broadcast, but you also heard the Spurs fans singing right back, and I thought that was cool too. For once, there was a little bit of atmosphere at Brisbane Road. It wasn't probably as full as anyone would have liked to see it, but at least there was something going on there, which is, more than we can say for a lot of the previous matches there to this point.
Well, Scotty, Andrew had mentioned, as part of that article, the conversations around a women's specific, stadium option down the line and things along those lines. And I think that matches like this and atmospheres like this and what we've seen, like the Lionesses do since they've come on, and it shows that if done properly, there is a market for this product, and it's just a matter of aligning it with what type of experience the fan base is going to want from it, because it's not the same experience as watching a men's game. And so now, to your very point, they have people that are there that are focused on building the identity of the Spurs Women program. And I think that as that continues to grow, we're going to see the opportunity for atmosphere a lot more throughout the season.
Yeah, 100%. You beat me to it, because I think the stadium's the biggest next piece for them. Obviously, they need to continue to invest in the personnel, right, and continue to build what Martin Ho has available to him as he grows into his role. But the stadium is really important. People that we know personally in London will tell you that getting to Brisbane Road, if you're from the Tottenham area, isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, right? And obviously there's fans across London that are not only in Tottenham, right, that are Spurs fans, and that becomes even more challenging to get to Brisbane Road. So there's times where I flip on a women's match and it just frustrates me how few people are there. But I think that's easy to say from my couch in Iowa, right? I forget how challenging that can be, and that's something that the club's going to have to address pretty quickly. But as Todd said, women's specific stadiums are incredibly important for the growth of the women's game, right? We look at what's happening in Kansas City. I can't think of the name of the stadium that the current play in, right? But I've been able to drive past it numerous times, and it's just like a beautiful stadium right on the river, right? And it's just a really nice place to go watch a football match, I can imagine, right? And so again, just that's kind of the shining example of the topic, right? But the point is, I think, if Spurs were able to whether acquire something that's already built or take it 100 steps further and build something, that'd be pretty special.
It would be cool. The other part of this piece that kind of opened my eyes is that Spurs are expected to splash some cash in January and actually spend, and there's apparently a 3-year plan that is being put in place to get this team vaulted into Champions League contention and at least into the Champions League places within the WSL. A big part of that is going to be getting better players. Like, let's be perfectly honest with it. And there are multiple reports that Spurs are getting prepared to sign Signe Gapseth from Norway. She is the Brann midfielder who played under Martin Ho when he was at Brann. And the head coach there, she has already kind of made her mark on the international stage. She's scored 5 times already in 12 appearances for Norway, including a brace in the Euros this summer against Iceland. This is someone who could come in and pretty much immediately see playing time in this midfield, especially with the injury to Maite Rose, who we saw this week underwent successful ACL surgery after her unfortunate knee issue. Like, yes, and more, please, is I guess the way that I approach this news. Like, I'm fully on board with making these signings. This is going to be a record signing for the Norwegian league, reportedly, from a dollars and cents part of things. So I'm fully on board with Spurs Women, going and getting good players to throw into this mix and see what happens.
Well, the 10 position is, I think, where we're struggling the most right now on this team. I mean, we've talked about how good we are defensively, and I look at the lineup, right? It's Neville, Koga, Hunt, and Nilden, and that's becoming just a very clear and obvious back four, right? And you start from there. Credit to Rybrink, who I thought did a pretty good job before Ash Neville got back to fitness or wherever she is now, right? But that back four set, and then Suminen and Spence, neither of them are being usurped anytime soon, right? They've been a really, really good double pivot for the club, but it's that 10 position, right? Because it was Beth England earlier in the year was playing there, and that was actually quite effective, I thought, right? But now it's been Holt, I think, the last 3 matches, if I'm not mistaken, with Vinberg on the left, and so I think you've tried a few different 10s there. We're great defensively, could be scoring more goals, right? And so you look for I believe someone who could play a 10, right? I'm not going to sit here and label her a 10 for my brief understanding of the player, right? But I think she would come in and compete for that 10 position pretty quickly and probably move Holt out back to the left, right, whenever that were to happen. So.
And apparently this is a player that many other powerhouse clubs were looking at, but she chose to come to London partially because the league is more balanced than some of the others, partially because the language is easier. I saw her quoted as saying that. So, she's not going to Real Madrid or Barcelona or Lyon or one of these big powerhouse clubs. She's coming to Spurs, and she's coming to play for former coach Martin Ho, which is another big part of this, is the recruitment that he can do. And I know we saw a lot of that under Robert Villahem too, him recruiting former players to come in. That is still something that I'm like, okay, like there's a little bit of me in the back of my mind that is, I wouldn't say worried about that, but just wondering, is that the only time Spurs are going to recruit a player of this ilk, as if there was some kind of previous relationship? But that is sometimes how these things start, and I'm just excited to see, new blood come into the team, because I think that's something that you need to keep doing. You need to keep bringing new players in and seeing where they can fit in, and this certainly seems like a really good start to it. So
and I would also and I would add, to those who are maybe newer to the game, Brann is a good team, right? They compete in Europe regularly. This is a good player from a very good team, and sometimes you need those relationships when you're getting to a point where you can't quite compete with those above you, right? And I think we're still there. So the relationships you lean on for now, we'll get her in. I'm super excited about it. She kind of gives me Decky vibes. It's probably just because they're both Scandinavian, but also fantastic.
And I'm
playmakers.
also going through Decky withdrawals, so I see that as well.
Yeah, that's probably part of this too. They also both look like they could definitely fix your computer, which always makes me laugh. So yeah,
I don't know what that means,
but someone will figure it out.
I completely do.
Okay.
So.
You know the thing though about Gapseth though, like if you Google her name, like you will see the traditional highlight videos for a player. she strikes me as someone, and this is something that I think Spurs women lack in some sense, and they found it a little bit with a player like Toka Koga, is just size. They have it with like Beth England. They have it in certain spots, but she has a frame that I think can play in the WSL, and the creativity too, as you mentioned. I think she most perfectly suits as a number 10, kind of in that creative midfield role. But I'm just excited to see, like I said, the new blood, but also these aren't just smaller players. You need a little bit of size to play in this league. We've noticed that, and we've seen that. And if you can combine that with the technical ability that she seems to have, I think it's a good recipe for things going forward. So, look, wherever the players are coming from, I get it. I'm on board. I wanted to express that there is a relationship there. So it is an important thing too. So I'm all on board for all of that. From the women's side of things, I don't really have much else for you guys. I mean, this, like I said, I think this was a really good day for Spurs women. A point, and then they kick on next week in the League Cup. They'll face Bristol City in what's a very winnable League Cup match, the final stage final game of the group stage. So win that, move through in the League Cup, and kick on. I believe the next WSL opponent is Villa. So Spurs are still sitting in 5th. They're right behind Arsenal after getting this point. They had a chance to vault themselves into those Champions League places with a victory today, but they'll settle for the point and move on from there. I wanted to touch on a few of the injury updates on the men's side because they are coming out of this international break now. We talked about Decky for one, ramping up his recovery quite obviously. A lot of stuff popping up on social media. Todd, I hope your withdrawal is being satiated by that a little bit because
nope, just straight up Decky edging right now. It's not fun.
Yeah, they are straight up giving you a lot of that Decky content. Even Destiny Adoki posted a clip on social media of Decky training on the grass, which is something that Thomas Frank recently said had not happened yet. So obviously we are moving in the right direction when it comes to Decky's recovery. Obviously, I'm still a little perplexed as to how this was originally deemed a knock, and he's now been out for 8 months or whatever it is.
Well, because Ange is clearly not a doctor of physical therapy.
Right. No, there's definite truth to that. I think the more concerning injury update we got over this international break is from Lucas Bergvall. Of course, he suffered the concussion November 1st in the match against Chelsea and had missed time since then, but then was called up to Sweden camp and roundly sent home after it was...
Yeah, because he's got a fucking concussion, Andrew.
Right, after it was discovered that he was still experiencing concussion symptoms, and we are now about 2 weeks removed from this initial incident. So that is saying something, that this is a serious ordeal.
Yeah, I mean, in this country, we have regular reminders of exactly how serious this can be. And I don't think, and I'm going to take a second here, Andrew, I don't think that concussions are talked about in world football enough. I don't think that they're given the same kind of, levels of import that you see in the United States. And concussion protocol across Europe is wildly different than it is in the majority of U.S. sports. And so, especially when you're looking at, arguably one of the best young talents in the world, like, fucking sit this kid down. It's ridiculous that he got called. Who the fucking Graham Potter? Of course it was fucking Graham Potter. Anyway, give the kid some time. You remember Jan Vertonghen talked about after his concussion where he had symptoms for like 9 months. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so like you can't be too careful with this kid in this injury.
Concussions are scary, man. I've suffered a few concussions back playing high school football, and I think to your point, what you say about like concussions being more prominent in this country, I think, or at least the awareness of them, I think that part of that is because of American football and the NFL.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a fucking collision sport,
right? So I do think there is something to that, and I had to miss time because of concussion. They are scary because you don't really. You lose your bearings very quickly sometimes. The symptoms can come and go. It's not something to mess around with. The brain is not something to be foiled with. So yes, sit this guy down, let him fully recover and slowly But this is also a major hit for Tottenham, like from an on the field standpoint. Like I would not expect to see Lucas Bergvall back maybe before another month. Like I want to give him that space.
Same. No, I don't want to see him until we're 100% sure that he is ready. I don't want any, and like, yes, oh, well, with him going down and with Pape going down as well, like that I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Right now, the most important thing is that Lucas stays healthy. So.
And you mentioned Pape. He apparently went out after about 49 minutes in Senegal's defeat to Brazil with an apparent knock. It doesn't sound serious, but another one
I watched him walk off the pitch.
Right.
It looked like he tweaked a groin.
And it sounded precautionary, but another one of those, like, I'm just, all right, wait and see. Like, let him get back to Hotspur Way and figure it out from there. The other notable injury from that match, Gabriel went down for Brazil with what appeared to be an adductor injury, which is the same injury that Romero missed a few games with. Of course, Arsenal on the docket next for Spurs men. The North London derby is next week, so that's something to watch this week heading into that match. Just from that standpoint, the other injury mentioned here is Radu Dragusin, who got his first 45 minutes under his belt in a closed door friendly for the under-21s against Leyton Orient this week. Positive steps again. This is his first action since late January when he tore his ACL against Elfsborg in the Europa League. He was also spotted in the crowd. Was James Maddison for this closed door friendly? He got some support from Maddison, who's of course undergoing his own rehab from ACL surgery. So good to see Radu getting back. I'm a little bit interested because we have not obviously seen Radu since the Ange era. And obviously, I don't think anyone thought he was remotely the right fit for the Ange Ball style of things. I'm curious as to what you guys think Radu Dragusin could potentially be under Thomas Frank, if anything.
Kevin Danzo's backup.
Sure. And is that a suitable role for him or something that he's interested in? Is I guess
no, absolutely not. We're gonna sell him as soon as possible. He's surplus to requirements, in my opinion. I think, is he going to do better in a Thomas Frank system than he is in an Ange system? Absolutely. But I think the biggest issue with Radu Dragusin is that he's dog shit on the ball and he doesn't pass very well. And those are two things that any manager in the Premier League worth his salt knows how to exploit. And you just, ISO that guy on the ball and you make him pass it and he pisses him down his leg. Like, that's not going to change. What he needs is to play in a league with a little bit more time where he's asked to stand with his heels in the 6-yard box the majority of the time and then just quick distribution and keep it moving. When he's asked to do that, he's a very serviceable defender. I think he would do extremely well in a league like Germany or in a league like Italy. But I think the Premier League is just too fast for Radu Dragusin.
I don't disagree with you, Todd. I think eventually Serie A feels like a really good home for him, but Thomas Frank is going to be versatile tactically, and I think there is going to be a time where we're going to sit back and defend for our life, and I don't mind Radu alongside of Van de Ven in some sort of situation like that. So I don't even think I'm pushing back, but maybe just adding perspective that he probably is our fourth center back at this point, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see, I shouldn't say today, but when he gets back to full fitness, right? Sure. I do see a world where Danzo plays on the left side behind Van de Ven and Dragusin on the right side behind Romero as well. If you want some rotation, we've seen Danzo play on the left side often enough. So,
who is Kota Takai? I don't know. Right?
Well, no one does. That's
right. No one does.
Yeah.
But I know that he's good enough to be the J League Defensive Player of the Year and make all sorts of starts for the Japanese national team, being like a 17-year-old or whatever. So I know that he has talent. I know that he has the ability to be, and I know that he's fucking huge. If we're talking about it, right? He's massive. What I also know is that Luka Vuskovic is coming. And I don't know what we're going to do about this, but Luka Vuskovic is coming. And when I'm looking at that back line, even if you wanted to play a 3, there's no world in which Dragusin leapfrogs Kevin Danzo or Luka Vuskovic next year. So whether we're looking to put him in the shop window through some of these cup games down the stretch, I don't know. Whether we're looking to move on from him in January if we can, because he's healthy, and we're just saying, hey, this guy can play. He just can't play for us anymore. Like, I don't know. It's just the things that Dragoshin is not good at are not things that you're going to be able to develop in the Premier League over time. At least I don't think so. I think you have to be in another league where you have more time to figure out how to pass the ball as a center back if you're going to learn how to pass the ball, because he's not good at it.
Weirdly enough, I think you guys are both right on all of your points. Like, I think that's a handshake agreement. Todd, I agree. I don't think long term he's a Premier League center back, but Scott, I also think that he's probably he may stick around because you need the bodies and you need to protect yourself against injury catastrophe and everything else. You mentioned the other center backs. All three of the other center backs for Spurs during this window put in 90-minute performances: Romero, Van de Ven, and Kevin Danso for their respective countries. And I don't want to talk too much about international games because there's more to be played. Obviously,
I do.
Recording this, I know you do, and we will mention a few. Like, those guys put in 90-minute performances. We also saw a 90-minute performance from Vicario in a clean sheet for Italy. Bentancur put in a 90-minute performance. Pedro Porro played a half for Spain. You mentioned Vuskovic. He made his first start for Croatia as they clinched a World Cup spot in a victory over the Faroe Islands. That was his second appearance, first start for them. And then Youngmin Hyuk also made his second appearance for South Korea in a 2-0 victory over Bolivia. That was a game in which we saw Hyungmin's son score an absolute worldie of a free kick, which he is wont to do. It was
a postage stamp goal from Son, which is ridiculous.
Which we know excites you as well as an LAFC fan. So
I'm just saying, brother, like, this upcoming weekend is going to be a big one. So anyway,
what other international shout-outs did you want to give before we get out of here?
Literally on this podcast, and this is a way back machine shout-out, so I'm just letting you know. Literally on this podcast, as we were recording it, I pulled up my phone and ordered a Troy Parrott Ireland jersey with a number 7 on it. Because this man has had the greatest international window of any player I've ever seen, and it's just been week 1. 2 goals against Portugal.
In a must-win game. They had to win that game.
And then a hat trick with a last-second winner against Hungary to solidify himself in the pantheon of Irish footballing greats. I'm amped for my guy. The redemption arc on that guy is going to be awesome. I anticipate a move to Italy or France where he's going to fill up those goals against those farmers very, very nicely, as he's done in the Netherlands. And he's going to see out his days. I'm talking about a Scotty McTee redemption arc for Troy Parrott right now, and I'm amped for it.
Dude, okay, real quick. You can say whatever you want about Ligue 1, but keep Serie A out of your mouth, man. Do not go down that road.
What I'll say about Serie A is there's about 8 teams that I have respect for, and the rest of that league spends the majority of its time fishing, and we both know it, and that's fine. It's wonderful fishing.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Como has joined the conversation as well, but there's a new winner every year down there in Italy. So keep your eyes towards Serie A.
I mean, right now, because the old lady is down and out, and I'm sure your man Juventus David can appreciate where I'm coming from. But what I'm saying is that that's just a dip, and we all know that it's 3 teams in Italy and only 3 teams, and they just cycle back and forth, and it's fun, and that's great, and everybody else is playing for Conference League spots with respect. Okay, it's Juve and the Milan teams and Bob Jungle.
So back to Troy Parrott, though, guys. I do want to bring it back to Troy Parrott here briefly because I am curious because I know there's a lot of Spurs fans out there who are thinking, "Wow, we let this guy get away." I personally can tell you, I am not one of them because I think Troy Parrott is great for where he is and gonna be great for where he is. I totally agree with you, Todd. Like, go to France or Italy or somewhere and bag your goals. I don't think he was gonna be Spurs' long-term option at striker, and I'm okay with when Spurs sold him and how they sold him and how they moved on. Any second thoughts, Scott, on your end?
I would just add to that. I fully agree. And international football is not the same level as the Premier League, and I know how that sounds like, but it's just
no.
The
it
truth,
sounds
right?
accurate. It's
Yeah.
sounds like a fact.
Yeah. I feel like if anyone who's not a Premier League fan who hears that is like, oh, this fucking Premier League pompous asshole, right? But like, it's absolutely
No, but it's true. There are levels
Premier
to
League
this.
trumps international football. Troy Perry doesn't have what it takes in England. Definitely has what it takes for Ireland. Again, he just punched their ticket to the playoff, right? Or maybe to win the group, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they're second. I think they're second group, but
Yeah,
to Portugal.
second to Portugal,
right?
I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah.
like,
but they
But
beat them
anyways.
head to head, so they have the.
they're trying to get to the World Cup for the first time in more than 20 years. Like, and obviously
Exactly,
it's an expanded field
since my guy
and
Robbie
all that,
Keane was
but
there,
still,
Spurs legend.
Yeah. And obviously an expanded field makes it easier, but I don't care. Like, good for them. Like, I'd love to see.
Yeah.
You love to see this for all these teams. I think that's really, really cool. Any other international shout-outs we needed to get out before we wrap it up here on a Sunday?
Shout to the England U17 team that made it to the round of 16 or whatever in that World Cup tournament. Luka Williams-Barnett is fucking ridiculous.
Fair enough. I want to give a shout to our boy Dakota. His
Yes.
Knoxville SC is in the USL League One final later today. Our boy is going to be down there with the Scruffs, and hopefully they can take out Spokane Velocity to win a trophy, and we will wish the best for him.
So I guess, to save our non-U.S. fans from having to look it up, I guess the USL League One would be equivalent to like League Two in England.
Mm-hmm.
League Two or League One, yeah, somewhere in that range.
I don't think
Aren't
it'd
they
be
the-
League.
They're
They're
the
the fourth
third
tier.
They're the fourth tier, I guess. Yeah, that's true. Man, don't get me started on USA structures and everything. Obviously, we got the news this week that MLS is going to be moving its calendar, which I know is a whole can of worms. As I tried to wrap up the pod, I'm now like slowly cracking open a can that I'm not intending to. But obviously that's a whole different kit and caboodle. Which
I don't
we'll get into
know.
another time.
I don't know how you're going to play regular season matches in Minnesota and Colorado
or
in
Montreal.
November.
They are taking all of
There is
January
gonna be a
and
break,
most of all of December and most of January off as like a winter break, which will help. But yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, there's going to be a lot of snow matches, but it's honestly big news. Like, it had to happen. It absolutely had to happen for the league to continue to grow properly. And more changes are coming, it sounds like. So yeah, it's going to be fucking wild, but it had to happen.
Yeah, we shall see. That's a topic for a few years down the road. The move is still a few years down the road. That is going to do it for this edition of the Tottenham Depot podcast. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. You can also leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. We will be back next week to talk about Spurs Women and Bristol City and, the North London Derby on the men's side. That's happening next week, too. We'll certainly be recapping that for you as well. You can follow Scott at Scott G. Bird. You can follow Todd at TC_Show. You can follow me at Astetka. But most importantly, follow us at Tottenham Depot for all the latest pods. We will talk to you next week. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.